Man, what is up, guys? Welcome back to Switch Life Garage with the boy KT as always, man. Now, alright guys, now today is the day, the final video of rebuilding this rear end on the truck. I know I've taken quite a bit of time and it took in quite a few videos just to explain everything that I'm doing onto there. And truth be told, I probably have like 20 plus hours of all this footage that I've been trying to break down for you guys and to just show onto YouTube. Hopefully you guys been enjoying this little bit of a series of the rear end. Last thing I need to go ahead and do is, if you guys been following along, I just need to go ahead and put in the wheel bearings, the seals, the axle shafts, the disc brakes, bolt on, the brake calipers, and as well a few other things here and there, as well as the cover, oil, what have you. But I'm going to take you guys through the last final bit of the process to get this thing back on the road. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. As always guys, make sure you are subscribed, make sure you comment down below and give me a thumbs up. But alright guys, let's go ahead and get right into it. Alright, so now I'm going to be working putting on the bearings and the shaft seal. The bearing I'm going to be using is from Yukon. Here's the part number 10002 AK1561FD, 2.99 outer diameter. So just open this up and go ahead and work on the bearing first. Just start it and see how hard it is.
Chuki got the sauce, bitch.
Alright guys, so it is the next morning. Everything taken care of for the differential. So now I gotta go ahead and get the axle shafts ready. You guys saw me put in the bearings and the seals, so we're ready to ride. I have the axle shafts. They have a little bit of rust on them, and as well, since the rear end been sitting, kind of got some rust on the inside from just sitting out in the salvage yard. Also by the wheel, you know, this isn't really going to be seen, but I just want to take off the rust and just paint some epoxy on it. I'm gonna have to cover up this part here so I don't scratch it. That's where the seal is going to ride on, so you don't want to touch any of that. I did happen to clean up the shafts with some parts cleaner just because that rear end was dirty, and so they're looking pretty nice right now. But I'm just going to use the wire wheels I have on the drill attachment, and as well I have the wire wheel. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on these. I have 2 coats of paint on both sides, on the front side and the underside. You guys might wonder, why didn't I do a better job at wire wheeling or sanding? Especially on that front side, I can't really stick something in there that's really going to break up the rust unless I was probably to get it sandblasted or whatever. Really, for me, I'm not really tripping about this. It's not all the way down to the bare metal on certain areas, whatnot, but you're not really going to see this. This is going to go behind the disc brake, and you're only going to see the center, but even that, when the wheel's put on, you're not going to see it. So these are dry enough to handle, and so now I could get the shafts into the rear end here. Just to look at the rear end, you got the parking brake, the seal, the bearings. Everything is very nice and clean. Got the calipers, brand new pads, polyurethane leaf spring bushings, painted the leaf springs, painted the rear end, painted the axle, stainless steel braided hoses, stainless hose, pretty much brand new Beltec shocks. Got the 2-inch lower hanger as well. I do have the drop shackles on the 1-inch drop. Now I have the 373 with the 975. That's the original gearing with this truck. You guys might be wondering, but what about the cover? Waiting to finish everything on the internals before I throw the cover on. So let's go ahead and throw the shafts in, and I'm gonna have to put the C-clips at the rear end to hold the shafts in, as well as that shaft that goes in between. I forget what it's called, but you guys know what I'm talking about, you'll see. And we have to set the bolt with a little bit of Loctite on it, and then we'll be ready to ride. Right, so I actually already put on the passenger side, but I'm going to put on the shaft on the driver's side. This is actually going to be the longer shaft of the two. Right, now that the shafts are in, you got to put in the C-clips. Alright, so the C-clips are in. I gotta go ahead and get the center pin in. I got the bolt for the center pin. This is going to be the final thing for the carrier, the shafts, and just locking everything all together. I have some orange thread locker, so it's a bit stronger than the blue one, so it's not really going to be an issue of it backing out, so I'm not really worried about it. So let me go ahead and install that. That is going to be torqued at 30 pounds. Alright, so I did say I am going to change out the cover. I'm not going to use that rusty cover. As you guys saw, I did clean up the mating surface for it to finally be sealed off, and we could start throwing in some oil. So here's the cover I chose to go with. And the bolts I chose to go with. The bolts I'm going with are from ARP. I mean, you really don't need these, but you know, they look pretty nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and use these. Here's the cover. Here we have the gasket for the cover as well. Got some instructions onto here. Here it is, guys. Here is a Ford Performance differential cover. It fits for the 975 rear ends. And we have two different fill bolts and a drain bolt. So the reason why there's two fill bolts is because whenever you have a truck that's lifted and the pinion starts tilting backwards, you're going to use the upper fill bolt because you're going to start leaking prematurely in the lower fill bolt. But I'm just going to use the lower one, and it also ups the quantity on the oil. So instead of using 2.75 quarts, approximately going to start using 4 quarts. So that's going to be another upgrade, which is going to keep the differential cool. Also with the fins, that's going to help keep the differential cool because heat likes to dissipate. So of course it's going to dissipate onto the fins, and the fins just get that air travel and cool it off much quicker than just being trapped inside. But here it is, guys. It looks very clean, nicely powder coated gray, more of an industrial type finish. Got that nice Ford Performance logo on there. There it is. There is the part number if you guys need it. But I'm pretty excited about this because it's going to look very nice. Now that I did everything on the rear end, it's just going to top it off. They did include some new bolts, but you know, I gotta go with the ARP. Per the instructions, I am going to torque it down to 20-25 foot-pounds as far as for the bolts that are going to go around it. I'm not sure for the reasoning of a lower torque, but I'm pretty sure it's going to seal it. So I'm not really tripping about that. I saw some other people say that they torqued it down to 14 foot-pounds, which that's very light to me. 25 is pretty straight. Now this differential cover is a bit pricey, to be quite honest. You can buy the Dana Spicer differential cover. It's the same thing, just has a different nameplate for a much cheaper price. But you know me, I want to go ahead and have that Ford Performance. So since this new differential cover provided a gasket, I'm not going to use any silicone. Alright, this cover is much heavier than the stock one for sure. I don't know how many pounds, probably a good 15 pounds. This is from a different ARP package, but they had some assembly lube, And so I'm just going to apply them to these bolts because I did have this differential outside and it did rain, so I don't want there, you know, to be rust inside the bolt holes. And so that's what I'm going to add this for, just so it gets some grease on there, some oil, and doesn't go even further as far as rust. Right now it should only just be surface rust, if anything. Alright, so that differential cover is on and it looks clean. There's a straight shot of it along with the stainless lines. This thing is looking hard, man. Let me go ahead and finish up the brakes. I'm going to throw in the disc and then throw in the calipers and torque it down. I'm using the disc that was on the rear end before just because they're like brand new. And of course they just have some light surface rust, but they'll come off whenever I use them. Alright, so now I'm going to put the drive shaft up to the pinion yoke. You're going to go ahead and torque these down. I find conflicting information on how much to torque them down to. I find from anywhere from 84 pounds to 112 pounds. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put them at 90 pounds and I'll feel pretty confident with that.
Chuki got the sauce, bitch.
Alright guys, so this is the oil I'm going to be using, like I said before, synthetic rear axle lubricant from Ford, the 75W140. Also what I'm going to be using with these 4 quarts is this additive friction modifier from Ford as well. So I'm just going to pour it into the oil bottle, just like mixing some lean, and that's going to be the first quart that I pour in, and eventually it just all mix up once it spins. So just opening it on up like you're mixing some wok and some Sprite, and you know how it go down. Y'all see it in there? What you sipping on? It's that wok, boy. Alright, so the fill plug and the drain plug, originally when I bought the differential, it's already loose, so you got to tighten it. How I'm going to fill the differential this time around is through the speed sensor or the ABS sensor. I'm not sure which one it is, to be quite honest. I haven't looked it up, but there's a hole up here. I haven't put the sensor in yet, so I'm just going to pour it from the top. It's going to be the easiest to me. Alright, so I have the speed sensor or ABS sensor, whatever it is. I have it right here. It's all clean, good to go with the new O-ring, which I got from my O-ring kit. It's just a various O-ring sizes. So now I'm going to go ahead and install it and install the bolt as well. What I'm also going to do is add a zip tie onto the parking cable, just because I don't want this wire to move all around. So I'm just going to tie it on down. Alright, one last thing I forgot to do is to tighten up the brake hose onto the caliper. So let me do that now for both the driver and the passenger side. For the most part, it's complete, right? All I gotta do is go ahead and bleed the brakes. You guys did see me install the stiflers, hard line, the stainless lines, and the braided hoses. I already tested out the parking brake. The parking brake holds and it's not rubbing on the rotor. So all I need to do to lower it is bleed the brakes, put on the wheels, and we'll be ready to go on the rear. The brake fluid I'm gonna use moving forward is a .4 brake fluid. It's actually I believe it's a German brand. A lot of people use it for like Mercedes, Porsche, what have you, for road racing. But that's what I'm going to be putting in the truck. So the reason why I like .4 as well is because if you spill it on something, it's not going to tear up your paint just like the .3 would. It just has a higher boiling point, so if you are going to take it onto the track, you know, you're not going to have any issues with your brake fluid. So I started up the truck, make sure there's no noise coming from the rear end, make sure the parking brake and the brakes are working, everything's good to go. Now I'm going to go ahead and jack it up, throw on the wheels, and lower this thing on down. I still got to torque down some of the suspension just because I was waiting to lower it onto the floor, but let me go ahead and get started. Alright guys, so the truck is on the ground now. I still need to torque down the leaf spring bolts just because I didn't want to tighten it up in the air and the bushings have to move whenever the truck hits the ground. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and as well I have to tighten up the strut, the bolts as well on those. So let me finish that off, and so we'll be all good to go in the rear end. This bolt right here is going to be the driver's side forward leaf spring bolt. This one, from what I find, is supposed to be torqued at 190 foot-pounds. I don't have a torque wrench that goes up to 190, but I do have one that goes up to 160. So 160 and some strength. The bolt right here, the leaf spring rear bolt, that one's going to be torqued to 85. The bolt for the shocks is supposed to be torqued at 52. So this is going to be one of the last times that you can't easily see the rear end, just because I am going to put the spare tire back in. I actually power washed it down here. With the truck being from Arizona, I had a lot of caked up sand and dirt just up here, and also on the spare tire. But take a look at the rear end, looking very nice, man. Like I said, one of the last times that you'll easily be able to see it, unless I take off my spare. Sadly, I got to go ahead and put in my spare tire. You just never know when something might go down and you need something on the go. You can't always wait for a tow truck, even if you have it on your insurance, you know what I'm saying? But so I cleaned up the wheel. It looks pretty nice. It looks like a brand new tire on there. One of the things, it wasn't sealing here in front of the rim. It's just because it had a lot of dirt and it was pretty deflated. So when it was deflated, you know, dirt just found its way in the seams and didn't allow it to seal any longer. But I did take it down to a tire shop, and they got that corrected. So now I'm going to throw it back up. Alright, spare tire is in. You could hardly see the little forward plate, but you could definitely tell it's still clean. Off to the side you could slightly see it, but like I said, most people ain't gonna even see it, so kind of put all this work for no reason. Of course I didn't put all this work for no reason. Definitely when you drive this truck you feel the difference, and for me it has a pretty firm feel, nice handling. I can't say it's the softest ride, but it's still sporty, and that's why I think this truck is a luxury and sport. Now, alright, goddamn. That was a lot of time, that was a lot of work put in. I'm pretty sure if you're one of my neighbors, you're just wondering what the hell I'm doing, and I'm probably just wasting my time. For real, man, if you guys take a look at this in person, this thing is looking immaculate. The cover is looking real nice. You know, I've just been thinking about the final touches on putting on that cover, the brakes, the wheels, everything coming together. And finally, it is here, guys. I did test drive it. It does ride a little bit rougher just because of the polyurethane bushings on the leaf springs. As well, I do notice a difference on the 373 pinion. It does feel a little bit more torquey, so that means it's a little bit more funner. Doesn't mean it has more power. It's just a little bit slight changes that does affect your takeoff, your 60 foot, what have you. All the little details does start to come together and start to make that difference. Also, the brakes feel pretty amazing, man. They don't feel spongy, they feel where they should be. You know, the amount of pedal effort matches the amount of work that the brakes is doing. So that gives me a little bit of a better feeling when driving the truck. But man, I am happy to have this thing back on the road the way it should be, not with the salvage rear end. And you know, it has fresh oil. Everything feels really good, man. All I can say is I'm really pleased with the results of this. You guys let me know as well. Drop a comment down below what you guys think of the work I've done. Of course, you guys haven't driven the truck or anything, but just on the visual aspect, let me know what you guys think of it. But of course, in the future, I am going to have a video of me driving the truck, so hopefully that could give you guys a little bit of a feel on how the truck rides, what have you. And I still need to do a review of the truck. You know, I haven't done a full walk around, but of course I'm going to get on to that. But it does have a lot more modifications on it than when I first bought it. Only had basically a sound system. Yeah, man, I'm pretty happy finally get this series out the way and to move on to some of the other things that need to be touched on and some of the other projects. But yeah, man, I'm finally able to take this on the street, go cruising, do what I want to do. Big boating Sundays, you know what I'm talking about. But alright guys, that is it for this rear end series. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you got a little bit of knowledge. Even if you have a front wheel drive car, you know, you might be helping one of your buddies out and he might have an issue, and you know, at least you have some of that knowledge in there. It might help you in the future. As well, in the description box is my social media if you want to get in contact with me. But alright guys, that is going to be the end of this video. Hopefully you stayed to the very end. If you did, hopefully you're subscribed as well, because you real as hell. But alright guys, I'm gonna have to catch you on the next one, player.